Hey, welcome back to another Four Color Films video. Today we're going to be talking about Moon Knight, the new Disney Plus series. It's already been going, so we are 3 episodes in already, which I can hardly believe, which is the halfway mark, if you can believe that, Kieran, which is kind of crazy. So let's talk about from the beginning, though. What was your first impressions of episode 1?
It was a bit of a departure, but you come to expect that with some of the Marvel stuff. We're not going to get a comic Moon Knight. We're not getting Jake Lockley and instantly and billionaire Stephen Grant. But I liked the direction they took with the character. I really liked the way that they gave us the perspective of being with Stephen on this journey.
Yeah.
And him being kind of lost in his own mind and his own story.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the original comic, Sienkiewicz run. And this obviously differs a lot from that. So as we understand it, I mean, we know, you and I, after reading the book for a long time, that there are 3 personalities: Jake Lockley, the cab driver; Stephen Grant, the billionaire; and Mark Spector, the mercenary, of course, who becomes the actual Moon Knight. Well, I guess they all become Moon Knight technically, right?
Yeah.
But that's the basis of the original character. So it was a big departure from that, I thought. But I thought it was a good one. And
yeah, I did. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was. I mean, remember when in the original comic, it felt much more like Moon Knight was much more with the 3 personalities. That Batman comparison really comes out with billionaire Bruce Wayne, and
every time.
Matches Malone is Jake Lockley through and through, right?
Yeah, totally.
So, delving into what makes each personality tick as opposed to it being a dissociative disorder, which I think is something that, I think it's Warren Ellis that first sort of dives into that.
I think he did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Jeff Lemire.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I thought, to me, I thought it was pretty necessary to make Stephen Grant into something new, because I think if they had made Stephen Grant American billionaire, it's too Batman, right? We can't do that again. It's too obvious. It's too much of a rip-off of that, which, it is what it is, right? I mean, I think, Munch was inspired in part by what Batman was, and how that drove and supplied Moon Knight was kind of important, right? From it comes down to actually making that character work as a street level hero per se, right? You still need money to drive these things, so that's what it came from. So I get the tool and the device, but I think when it comes down to it, Marvel can't go around repeating basically a Batman billionaire vigilante routine. It doesn't work right. So to me, it was pretty smart of them to make Stephen Grant into a British museum geek. It actually works much better, especially in later episodes as we get to talking about that as well too. So it works much better for me on that front, and I'm open to it. I think it's more important, the point.
Oh, I'm 100% with you, and especially with Tony Stark. We've already we've already had our billionaire playboy play out.
We don't really need another one, do we? Even you're right. That's even closer into this universe, I guess. Really. Yeah.
And yeah, I loved the Stephen Grant personality, the way that they've, and he's like you really feel for him in that first episode before, we don't see Moon Knight till the end.
Yeah.
But you really feel for him as he's lost on his just journey, with day to day.
For sure. I think they did a really good job in the filmmaking of making it very apparent that what I've heard from a lot of people in the psychological industry is that the dissociative disorder, the loss of time, is very real. It feels like you just it's something, it just happened when it didn't happen at all, right? Or it happened 3 hours ago for you because you became someone else, or your memories got basically shuffled away into a dark corner, right? So you don't even get to have that. So waking up and realizing that what happened, where am I, was very much, I think, on par with what the depiction of it goes. I thought very realistic in a lot of ways, but also it really helped put you in the driver's seat, right? In the same character seat that Steven's facing. I thought it humanized it quite a bit too. Even they were talking about in one interview about the simple fact, the director really fought to keep in the steak ordering scene in, because he's a vegan. He never eats steak. Like he has no idea what he's doing, but he's just there going through the motions. And oh yeah, fine, that sounds good. Yeah, fine, great.
Yeah, I'll take whatever. And I think it just it exemplifies that loneliness of any kind of mental illness, in those moments where you're alone with your thoughts, and he's sitting there, and the weekends past his inability to create meaningful relationships. And even as we go later on, like delving into how long this has been going on for Mark Spector, for Moon Knight, like how his life has been pre becoming the avatar of Khonshu, right?
Yeah, for sure. They did a very good job, I think, of bringing us along for the ride for the character in the first episode, and then ultimately the final reveal is like Moon Knight for like a single scene. But I thought it was a very strong build up towards that arc and towards that sort of moment. I think was really well played. I think I have no complaints about the momentum or build of the episode. To me, it was built very smartly and very well art directed too. Like all the reflection scenes were very meaningful on that point. All the key scenes about, especially that putting him into that car chase, basically, like when he's half asleep, was pretty brilliant, right?
Oh, it rides that line of where you're feeling for the character, but it also, there's just that touch of levity in it, which is for the viewer, I think, where you're just like, oh, he's gone again, and you can they masterfully put in that element of just almost humor. He's driving an ice cream.
Yeah, absolutely. He throws a gun at the guy. It's classic.
Yeah,
it's pretty good on that side. It was really pretty foreign, which is kind of cool. I think a good way of doing it. Which so what did you think of the main villain, the reveal of Arthur Harrow, who actually begins the story?
I'm not gonna lie, I still haven't dug out the issue yet. One issue, and I don't.
It's Khonshu number 2, right? That's the only issue shows up in?
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but when was the last time you read that issue?
I think it was when it came out, 1990, whatever it was. Yeah.
There's that whole sense of, is it him? Is there a red herring? And I guess for a villain like you, if you go to, your instant thought is to go to Bushman and go the Mark Spector mercenary conflict here.
Yeah.
And I like that they didn't take the quick and easy way out. I think there's still more to go down the road if they choose to go further. But I really like Ethan Hawke's role.
Yeah, me too. I think I was a little concerned about how they're going to use him and what his character would turn out to be. But I think Ethan Hawke is doing a very good job of inhabiting that avatar. I think you're right. You hit on a really key note to me, which is that we didn't start with Mark Spector. It didn't. The story's not built around that character. I think if they had done that, it would have been that much weaker. Like I think so. It feels much more interesting to me to have that Mark Spector persona being the secondary character in a lot of ways, right? Because it's simple. We can have an easy mercenary turned hero character any day of the week, right? That to me is like constant and probably a little bit more trite in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so to make it the focus on the storekeeper, Stephen Grant in this case, was much more compelling to me, much more new to me. Like everything to me felt a little bit new, which I think is important for Marvel to do at this point, rather than do the same things over and over again. Right? You have to be able to add someone to this pantheon who adds a difference in value, right, to the universe to make it wider, which I think is pretty smart.
No, I 100% agree with you there. And I think, when it comes right down to it, it's, that's, if you told me 10 years ago that Moon Knight was going to be featured in anything live action, I would have
laughed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be like, who isn't going to be in live action.
Yeah.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
But I'm loving what they're doing with with the character. I think they're giving him a compelling storyline to go through. And I mean, even oh, man, I'm getting anxious though. I want to see way more Moon Knight.
Yeah.
But
so suddenly we're 3 episodes in and it feels very short. Very short, We're at the halfway mark already, and I feel like we're just getting started, which I think is the only tough thing for me right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to go off topic a bit, but after watching the latest Batman film, where we were just so immediately immersed in Batman, where you're just like, oh my god, it's Batman, Batman, Batman. I kind of spoiled, I mean, seeing Moon Knight live action. I just want Moon Knight, Moon Knight, Moon Knight. And
well, hopefully it does really well and we get that right in season 2 or movie, whatever happens next, who can say. So that's a good point. So what's your speculation now you see it building? We're 3 episodes in now. What do you feel is going to be next for this character? If you had to put a bet on it.
Well, I think we've seen Jake Lockley already. We just haven't put a name to him yet.
So you think that was a third persona that we didn't hear about?
Absolutely.
But he's a killer.
Or, well, who else could it, like, what's to say that, with Stephen Grant being a museum creator, not a millionaire, like, who's to say what else is going on? Or is it the Khonshu himself?
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think they're gonna go that. I think I'm hoping for the third personality to come out.
I think it was definitely apparent that was a third personality that neither of them was aware of. Who it is, I don't know. And your guess is probably pretty good. It could be Jake reframed. It could be Khonshu himself just taking over for a little while, which we saw him do in episode 3 to make him a speaking role, which was pretty amazing actually to see. Let's talk about that for a second. So what did you think of Khonshu as a personality?
Oh, I thought it's done so well. Like, it's masterfully done, where he's being haunted by
by a belligerent ghost.
Yeah, is just fantastic. Just and you can feel when we get to Mark, feel that weight of like, I've got this burden, and he's that he's carrying, and why is he, they gave us that little bit with Marlene. Layla, where they've given a quick motivation for the character to carry the burden, to shift it away wife, which is instead, which I think is again just a great little nuance of storytelling, just to take away from the need of the backstory of him dying in the desert and being resurrected by Khonshu as his avatar. We don't need that much of that story right away, but we need an explanation for the burden. Yeah,
that's right. Which I think we got now, episode 3. We have an idea about why this is happening. I think they've done that through explanation between the two characters about why he's been chosen, what he's doing with that personality. Right? You're right. I was thinking they might get to an origin at some point, but now you're right. Maybe they don't even need to do it at this point, because it's kind of doesn't matter, right? He's just kind of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we could see him in a flashback scene where he dies and is resurrected. It'd be kind of interesting to see maybe if Khonshu has a role to play, and what he's going through between Mark and Steven and mystery third person.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, there's just so much there's so much out there to play with right now, Haro saying he's a former avatar of Khonshu, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Some of the when you think about it, some of the the best comic storylines are when they just somebody just looks at a character and goes, "What if?" Like Iron
Yeah.
Fist, the Matt Fraction run, where they go
Oh,
back.
absolutely. Yeah.
You're not the first Iron Fist.
So I think a lot of this series is coming a lot from the Lemire series. To me, as I'm rereading this again, I'm like, oh, okay. They pull like quite a lot. The look of Khonshu, I think. So
got a nice Mickey there. Mine are all thin volumes.
Yeah, I got a nice thick one, so it's kind of cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about this guy. So we're talking about Mr. Knight. Okay, so a lot of controversy on the internets about Mr. Knight not being there, Mr. Knight, or not being comic accurate. What was your take on that?
I absolutely love it. And
why?
I just think it's to give that, it just ties in so well with Stephen Grant being Moon Knight, and the idea of the avatar. Just it embodies the host, right, in the way the host thinks. And so when he's Stephen Grant, he's like, oh, suit, okay,
I need a suit.
And it's a in that way, just a fantastic shout out to the idea of Mr. Knight. I wasn't to go down that route of Moon Knight having different personalities is that would be a lot to cover. But the idea of whichever personality is in charge at the time having its own interpretation of what being Moon Knight is, or being the avatar of Khonshu, right?
Yeah.
So
it's more purposeful, right? They are making it much more purposeful. Like, to me, I felt like Mr. Knight is just a sort of reflection of Moon Knight itself, right? Yes. To me, there's not that much difference, except he wears a suit and he seems to be like more managerial in stature, right? And communicating to the police or managing the Defenders of the Night, whatever that is. Like, it's more of a token, I think, as opposed to being a meaningful change in the character, to me.
No, I would agree with you.
Yeah. So to me, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that they made it much more purposeful why Mr. Knight looks like he does. There's a reason. It's grounded in the personality that is driving the incarnation of Moon Knight through Khonshu and being activated, bearing the characteristics of the actual person, activating personality, the drive, the tone. I think it was, and then I think it was actually played up for a bit of humor too, which I think is a good idea as well too. Like, people were like, my Mr. Knight's not funny. I'm like, well, why not? And it's not to say he's not going to end up in the same place anyway, because obviously he's pretty powerful, judging from his punches and the staffs that come out. Like, he'll get to it, but it's a differentiation between Mr. Knight and Moon Knight that was a pretty good idea. And to me, I'm open to it. I don't know why people are very closed off to it, which I think some of the fandom tends to be very rigid when it comes down to like what their Moon Knight is. And I think it's a disservice to the process of creation in this case. And to what's also, in my mind, smarter writing in this case.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think you've really, we've been down this road for the last how many years now, just with Marvel alone. But anytime you're adapting, something in print to live, there's bound to be, there changes, and whether it's changes for just to say change versus a change with purpose, which I think, we have to be open to it. How many times were we reading comics and when the creative team switches, it's like, all right, I'm going to get rid of these characters and do this and that,
reshuffle the deck, right? Yeah,
all different, whoever, right?
Yeah.
Like, to be the expectation, like, I don't think will ever get one character where somebody's like, yep, that's completely 100% comic or origin accurate for a character. It's
no, I agree. No, for sure. And that's a really good point. Like, I think just the fact that like Moon Knight's had this many different books, different runs, different authors in the last like decade, right? There's been I think I counted. I think there were 8 different runs since our original Moench Sinkovich run, right?
Yeah.
So in that is a huge amount of stories on that side and a huge amount of interpretations of that character and all the characters within, and a reframing of them. To your point about kind of how Ellis reframed it and how Lemire reframed the actual dissociative disorder part of it, is all a bunch of new things on that side. And I think that's great. That's why we read comics, right? There's always something new to dig into, and you may not like it. You may not even read that part. You may skip that one. That's up to you. But at the same time, it becomes like a much wider range to choose from about where you take a character for one single aspect, which is either a movie or a TV series, or which you have to choose. What are the things you're going to bring to the table from, book A, series B, miniseries C, right? And that becomes what all becomes mixed into this character, because it's all relevant. But the choice is what will work to unite those things to move forward into one single piece, which is what we're seeing now. And I feel like with Feige as the main driver, they have a good handle on how to do that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at the track record of characters and what we've seen pulled from 1940 all the way up to 2010, you can't. There's not. Everyone's Captain America is different. Everyone Iron Man's different. Everyone's Moon Knight's different. So how do we go down one road and in one universe and make it new though too? If we were just a lot of the stuff that when we were reading Moon Knight in 1980. 1980 does not translate to 2022. So, some of the aspects of storytelling, right?
Absolutely. I think I liken it to what they're doing with Tom Holland's Spider-Man right now too, right?
Yeah.
Because, we've seen that origin story like a billion times, and 2 full trilogy almost of characters doing the exact same thing in a way. One could argue that the first trilogy was much more traditional. The second one was much more Ultimate Spider-Man, but the same story was told, which is like basically your aunt and uncle or your uncle dies and you get the powers, and that bears great responsibility, et cetera, right? As we all know. And for Tom Holland, they turn it around completely, right? And so spoilers, but the Aunt May scene is a great turn, right? And for that reason, it's new, but no one was griping about that, as being like, that's not my Uncle Ben story. It's like, no, it doesn't need to be.
Where are my picks?
Yeah, right.
Why is Aunt not 90 years old?
Yeah, exactly. So I think some fans are choosy with the fandoms that they tend to be upset about, which I think is kind of irritating to me sometimes, I gotta say. But
Oh no, you have to be open to change and open. I mean, the moment we open any comic book with a new writer on it or new artist, we're seeing a change in the character. Like I was looking back at the different Moon Knight costumes over the years, and I was like, there was like top 10 Moon Knight costumes. I'm like,
top 10? Top 10?
And like, he wore that armor and that Mark Spector run. I forgot about that armor. Of course.
The conju, like bright gold on the chest, like
where he pulls it off. It's a good club.
Yeah, there's a lot of like questionable decisions there. It's fine. It's near mark of its time, and it's up to that writer and that artist to come up with that and agree on that, which is fine. But it's a lot of variations there, right?
Yeah, I'm excited though.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of him with summon the suit, I guess, is the phrase of the show.
Episode 2, Summon the Suit was pretty amazing. Like I loved it. I loved it. That was episode directed by, I believe it was like the two directors from The Endless, right? Who did Synchronic and The Endless. They were very good directors of like almost like a bit of a horror sci-fi sort of genre. So they're pretty well suited to directing like a medium of this choice. So it was kind of cool to see them apply their craft to this character. And I thought it was really well done. Like it was just so much. It was so much fun to watch. just to watch the unveiling of what the Mark Spector character was and bringing in the wife all of a sudden. These married. Like wow.
Oh,
it's pretty good, right?
And then we get that great payoff of seeing Moon Knight.
Yeah.
And what am I watching?
Yeah. Actually, see him go toe to toe with that thing in the end, and have him just like lay him out and just have those moves be like so fun to watch and so engaging and so brilliant. It's something that I think you and I have dreamed about for a long time, probably since we were kids for the most part, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I've looked at that costume a few times, and I like it.
Me too.
I really think that they've made it work for this universe that he's in, right?
Yeah, let's talk about it for a second, because I remember when the first, like, I think it was probably like a teaser image came out, and I think that someone had maybe found it somewhere and put it up, and they were no one would even verify it was really the costume, but they're like, it was like, oh, is that Moon Knight? Like, oh, it's all wrapped in bandages. It's kind of weird looking, right? Like, it was a bit off-putting at first. I will say I was a bit like, I'm not sure, is that really how it's going to look? And then thankfully it wasn't, because it was the beginning of it. Now you see it like properly lit and fully finished. Like, it's kind of brilliant. Like, the way it flows, the wrappings, the architecture of it all. Looking at the Hot Toys figure is absolutely incredible. The fact that you and I didn't even notice that there was like the Ankh was built into the moon, which we didn't even notice until like looking at the figure. Like, come on,
Great.
Yeah, it makes sense too, because if you're going to stick with it, Mark Spector is like straightforward guy becoming the armor of Khonshu. It's very traditional, right? Like, he's going with it, right? He's sticking with what he's got. So it's emblematic of Moon Knight, pure, we could say at that point. So of course it's going to be Egyptian influenced, and of course it's going to be like brought about mummy like, with a lot of the intricacies of hieroglyphics around it, the moon symbol itself too. So well done. It's kind of cool. I don't know where that thing comes from. It's kind of awesome that it's like, instant batarangs, which is kind of sweet, but it was pretty dope.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was, and the idea of him being just Mark Spector in a spandex suit. We're gone are the days of spandex superheroes. We got.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. If you think about the first like Sienkiewicz one, I mean, it was basically this like would have been just like a spandex suit. If you'd done it just like punch for punch, like if Alex Ross were to realize that guy looking real, he would look pretty darn silly. Let's face it.
Yeah, absolutely. And going around and a spandex suit in the 80s, our suspension of disbelief, we're like, all right, but
what's surprising to me too is that they went the full cowl on him. Like, you can't see his face at all, like not even eyeballs. Like, they're lit up, which gives it a much more kind of ghostly apparition feel. Like, it feels much more supernatural in a sense, but it takes away any of the human contact you get from seeing someone's eyes, which I was amazed that they went with that, given the strength of someone like Oscar Isaac, who's such a great actor. They chose to cover it up, and that is meaningful, right? That is on purpose, because they want the costume to have a certain aspect and a feel, right? Which becomes much more important to the supernatural side of it, to make it that expressive, right? On that side, which I think is interesting choice to me, and kind of surprised me, actually, I will say.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think it's so good that they went that route with, instead of, last thing we need is Judge Dredd Moon Knight, where we see, where Sylvester Stallone's, not, we don't need, we know who it is, and get enough. We've got so much Oscar Isaac, doing up every scene he's in.
He's doing so much in this show. It's kind of incredible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and in episode 3, they did show that the costume comes off like magically whenever he needs it to. Apparently, when you want to see his
Yeah.
face, you can do it. So that's why I think they also did this, because they made it much more of a magical costume now, which is kind of cool and allows you the freedom to show his face when you need to. Like, key moment, be emotive. Okay, show his face. There's shock and awe here, so I'm gonna go with it, right? Which is kind of cool. And also interesting, he seems to be a lot stronger in this form than in his comic. I remember the comic form he got beat up all the time. Let's face it, right?
Oh yeah, like I think he's basically the idea of well, his powers are enhanced under a full moon, or with there've been so many, and
Yeah,
then I think the Khonshu run where he did have superpowers to an extent,
yeah, that's
but
right.
I mean, back in the 80s, he's still functioning, peak human Captain America era peak human.
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah,
not movie Captain America, but like
yeah,
guy like 800 pounds is probably the limit. But when he's getting those stabbed and just I was just
yeah,
like,
yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
that's interesting choice to make. Like, and they were very clear. I think, and they say, like, in Khonshu says that without my healing powers, what would you be, right? Or how would you deal with that? And so they were very clear that the supernatural affectation of Khonshu was that he's pretty much unkillable or invulnerable, which fits nicely if you think about the resurrection part of it. Makes sense, right?
oh yeah, and especially going forward with the character in this universe,
Mm-hmm.
you're not gonna you're not gonna get by without some kind of edge going into any kind of battle going forward. There,
Mm-hmm.
we already have Hawkeye, and we just need one awesome human.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
you know,
two if you
so,
count Kate Bishop too, right? So there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So, what did you think about episode 3 now that that's dropped? So 2 is the suit, which I think was great follow up to episode 1. If episode 1 is the build and the character, and then episode 2 is like the suit and what Moon Knight is, episode 3 to me felt like another change. What did it feel like to you?
I like seeing Mark's side of the story at
Yeah.
this point, where he's talking to Steven on the other side, which not enough can be said about how well done those scenes are.
Yeah.
And I just think we're opening it up more and more, and then with all the other Egyptian gods,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
we're opening up this world that he's a part of, and I don't know what they're going to do, because they're really opening up a big can of worms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It's very large right now. You're right. And it's an interesting point. Like, I feel like first 2 episodes were clearly like Stephen Grant dealing with what's going to happen to him now. And it seems like this episode was clearly Mark Spector as the driver, with everybody else as a backseat and a third personality coming in. So it'd be interesting to see if they follow that. If it's like 2 for Grant, 2 for Spector, 2 for Jake, question mark, or
Yeah.
whatever, to finish off, and then finally they all come together, or whatever that is at the end of it. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens, because to me, it felt like they took Khonshu out of the picture now pretty cleanly. So without his powers now, what happens now? Is this more like, do they have to rely on more of the Mark Spector or Personality 3 to get the job done now to free him? What happens next?
uh why Thor's so secretive. I don't know if you heard that rumor, of which makes a ton of sense. Thor showing up. I mean,
What? Wow, that would be crazy.
oh well, if you read Jason Aaron's runs, like that's like what a perfect place to now you've opened up this world of all these Egyptian gods. Now we've got Khonshu safely confined.
Yeah.
Like he's safe right now. So in essence, we protected our lead character at some point. I think it's possible, whether it's in Thor or in at some point in this that we'll see the tie-in to the bigger universe.
Wow. Yeah.
With, I mean, doesn't it make sense that you've got all these arcing deities, and eventually there's one left. I mean, you look at that scene and you're like, man, that was that was a perfect that's a perfect time to bring in some A-list actors and into key roles, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Just because it's just a nice small little scene, but you're like, oh, they're they're clear. I think they're wearing red shirts.
You're probably right, because they weren't anybody like specific or, again, very well known. So that's definitely a possibility. And I think you're right. This could end, I think, in some sort of crossover moment. Because honestly, if they just stop at episode 6 and okay, that's the end of the story, it will feel fairly left off, right? Like I feel like there's a drive, and I think the fact that we're not seeing a lot of hints of the other universe now is purposeful. Like I think they want you to focus on the character and the build. Like I think there's like one call out to like whatever that Doctors Without Borders or People Without Borders ad on the bus, like in London, right?
Oh, don't they mention Madripoor? And
yes, they did mention Madripoor. You're right as well in episode 3, right? So so there's definitely a light touch, but nothing direct. But I think you're right. I think they're saving their ammo for the last episode and to that handoff to whatever that may be. Which if we know Feige, he'll have something to drop at this point, right? So I think expect to be good.
Yeah, it's when you really look at every show so far, they've all eventually given us a piece of the puzzle, moving the universe as a whole forward, of where there's a foundational block that's just slowly just put into place, and left and to build on, so that we can come back to Moon Knight and go forward with whoever else or whatever else they decide, or wherever they're taking this.
Yeah,
I certainly think that there's room for Moon Knight going forward, based on just the little that we've seen. He can definitely hang with the rest of the heroes in the universe, and not ability in any kind of cosmic world threatening event.
Yeah, for sure. That's actually a very specific change, right? They have made, whereas you and I grew up with him being more of a street level hero, right? Dealing with kind of like more hoods and villains in the neighborhood, and a few like superpowered people on occasion. For the most part, it's been pretty street level, right? Dropped a lot. And to me, this opened it up to much bigger arc, which is close to where they're going with, like, I think the Black Knight / Blade. Like, I think we're delving pretty heavily into that area of magic, of supernatural, of gods and monsters, which I think is pretty cool, and probably for a very specific reason, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think we're seeing a bit of a Midnight Suns kind of team happening here, which would
100%.
Be fantastic. There's definitely room for it.
Yeah, agreed. So it is. I mean, I can't believe you, of all people, aren't calling out the fact that this was like an Indiana Jones episode.
Oh, what's so funny is I can't even believe it was no. That's why I told Nolan when we were watching. I was like, oh my god, this is totally Indiana Jones. Oh my gosh, of course. And yeah, that's what I'm hoping, when we were watching, it's like, oh, next time we're going to see a bit more when they're, doing the, when we actually get to the tomb.
Yeah, for sure. Indeed. I mean, the fact that he classic like knife scene, and he punches him with the knife with such an Indiana Jones moment to me, like square on. Like, oh, I get what you did there.
Yeah.
And his fighting was really good too in the episode. I thought it was really well choreographed. It felt very well framed and well. The fight choreography was pretty good. I thought overall, pretty impressive.
Oh, fantastic!
Mm-hmm.
And Indy wouldn't stood a chance in that fight.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, no, I really think that. Isn't it great the way that we've went from seeing nothing, just the aftermath, and we're slowly seeing bits and pieces. Our fight scenes they're slowly giving us more and more of what Mark Spector is capable of, what as a man, just out the suit as opposed to with the suit, that there's still a very capable individual. He's a mercenary, and we're getting to see a bit.
It's true. Yeah, which is purposeful. I think you're right. In the first 2 episodes, the Stephen Grant episodes are really about, what just happened. I'm out for a second, and something bad happened here, and I'm okay. And now in episode 3, we see, well, this is what happens now.
Yeah.
We don't need to reveal what happened in those past scenes, because now you get to see what I'm doing now, right? Which is great. Smart device.
Yeah, just slowly pulling back the curtain that we see is completely capable, even though we kind of figured it out already, but just giving us a bit more.
Yeah, that's good filmmaking, right? Where you kind of don't have to hand feed everything, right? You can basically kind of give a progression, and that each thing builds on itself to kind of give you the parts of the puzzle you need to have, right? Which is why, like, a lot of times I compare this to Memento, and how Nolan made Memento work, right? But it's all the things that you get to be as a third party viewer to get. You got to figure it out sometimes too. Like, part of it is kind of like intimating what's in the past and what that meant and how that works, and finally you get it, you're like, oh, I see what you did there. That's brilliant, right? So that's what I think it should work, which is kind of cool too.
No, I really enjoy that it's not being spoon fed to us, like especially that first episode where you really I mean, I guess the watching it with Nolan, who his Moon Knight exposure is pretty limited, other than
let's face it, most people's Moon Knight exposure is fairly limited, except for you and me.
Yeah, so his interpretation of the character was important to me to see what he thought. He Cole's Note version, and has known who Moon Knight is. Read, I was thinking about it. He's maybe read a dozen Moon Knight comics, so very, very limited. And he was enjoying the journey and the episode, and you're just piecing it all together, right? Just, oh, okay. And as you're waiting, Mark Spector. When you hear Moon Knight, I think everyone thinks instantly, okay, Mark Spector, Moon Knight. That's the name most closely associated with them. And then you're meeting this person. So
and his longest run too. Mark Spector Moon Knight was 60 issues.
Oh yeah, the Chuck Dixon run.
Yep. Yeah. It's the longest version of Moon Knight that's out there. Like Sienkiewicz Munch was only 38 issues, right?
Yeah, and this was 6.
Yeah. And then the one after it there was like a couple of limited series, and then there was a 30 issue run by, I think the Lemire series was 30 issues or something. Maybe the one after Lemire actually was 30. Did it go 30? Which one?
The Lemire one went 30?
One of them, it was either that one or the one after like the 30, I'm pretty sure. But I'll have to look it up again. Yeah, the Lemire is 1 to 14. Oh, I think yeah, it might have been. Yeah, I know the Warren Elson one was only like 1 to 12, right? So yeah, I think there's another 30 issue one somewhere in the middle, which I forget. Oh, I think it actually became the Platt run actually at the end of it. That one.
That's the Mark Spector run. That's the 60 issue.
Oh, you're right. Oh my gosh. Geez, I forgot about that. Okay.
I can't remember if Moon Knight was one of those books that got the legacy numbering happening.
It did. So that's this
for a while.
This book they just released now, the Legacy. And this is Moon Knight 188 to 200.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So they got the legacy ones put there. So okay, so which one is your favorite Moon Knight run?
My favorite Moon Knight run?
Mm-hmm.
The first run.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Big surprise. That said, the Spectre run holds a special place for me because that's when I was that's like right in my heyday of starting work at the comic store and
yeah.
go getting anticipating a new Moon Knight #1, like, oh, okay. And
yeah,
I remember when that first issue came out, working at the store, and then sticking with Moon Knight for 5 years through thick and thin.
Yeah. How do you feel overall now in the series, having seen the first half?
I'm really enjoying it. Like, I think I don't mind the pacing. I actually like that we're getting it. Slow. It's slow and steady and slowly building. I'm anxious for more of Haro and seeing. Oh, how great was it when he showed up in the third episode, and you could just you just hear ever so subtly, you can hear the glass.
Oh yeah, in his shoes, totally walking.
And it just, that sounds there, and you're like, oh right, he's
yeah, walking on glass the entire time. Yeah, so creepy.
No, it's creepy and compelling. Like I'm definitely interested in seeing where he goes, because his followers are legion, and he's an open book. Who's to say what where they can go with this character, or
yeah, I wonder if it'll end with Amit being released and that's how they close.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Or yeah, it's so hard to say what to do.
Yeah, the more predictable outcome, I guess, is that Amit gets released and gets put back somehow, right? That's the exchange. I think that's probably going to happen if you follow the standard playbook, right?
Or he's just released, and that's where it ties into the bigger part of the universe, and
that's where I'm going. Yeah, which I think maybe that requires a bigger effort to borrow that genie again, right? Maybe that's the play that they make. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I think the scale and scope of it was pretty dramatically increased this episode. Like, we went from just being like, oh, okay, he's got another personality. Okay, he's got to fight some bad guys, dogs. That's fine. But to me, like, the scale and scope of it pretty amped up pretty dramatically in this episode.
Oh yeah, we're not
like just the fact that we're changing the entire sky back to 2,000 years ago, that everybody could see, was pretty dramatic, like in scope, right? Like pretty huge.
Oh yeah, we're definitely dealing, like, exactly when they did do that, you're just like, all right, we're dealing with god level power here, and seeing where they go with it, and it'd be interesting to see if they even explain where he was during Infinity War,
during the events.
During those events, because we've established that, or they established that their Khonshu was around before.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he's been with Mark Spector for 5 years, 5 months, he's clearly, he clearly has a bond with Haro that seems to have, it doesn't seem like a 2-month relationship that they have.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if and how they tie that in to what's gone on before, and ultimately, is it necessary? Probably not, but it'd be interesting to see bits, pieces.
For sure. I think some fans have talked about that too. It's like the classic Eternals problem. It's like, where were you guys during all this stuff that was happening? There are convenient excuses like we're not supposed to interfere. Okay, fine, great. It
That
seems
makes
kind of important that you maybe should have interfered, when Thanos is thundering around and obliterate the universe, but whatever. But I think you're right. I think in this case, the other gods are specific about they don't interfere with human courses of action, right? Except for Khonshu, who apparently does. But I guess the excuse could be is that it doesn't interfere a lot. Like
yeah,
maybe it's just kind of there to write justice on a more smaller scale because you want to be found out by the other gods and chastised on that side, right? Is one way I think they can handle it. We certainly get a lot of great 2 hour, 3 hour plays, basically, of some of our favorites. But I think you're right. The Disney Plus medium allows them more length and time to do much more interesting work in some regards. And it's much more of a character study. You can have kind of those emotional beats kind of occur throughout without it having to be so formalized in a 2.5 hour script or entity, right? Which I think is more for us to deal with. And I think they're really smart about how they're handling it because it feels like it's like a really a very well thought out track that is both impactful and needs the time to do it, right? Which I think is great. So we get the time, which I think is really cool.